In the vast emptiness of space, the starship Odyssey drifted silently near a small, uncharted planet. Its sleek silver hull gleamed faintly under the light of a distant sun. The crew had been sent on a mission to explore this unknown region of the galaxy, searching for anything that might help humanity understand its place in the universe. Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the view screen as the planet loomed larger with each passing moment. "Lieutenant Carter, are we picking up any signs of activity down there?" Laura asked, her voice calm but firm. Ryan Carter, the ship's pilot, glanced at his console. "Nothing unusual so far, Captain. Just some strange energy readings coming from the surface. Could be natural, or something else." Laura nodded. "Prepare a landing party. Dr. Cole, you're with me. Let's see what's causing those readings." Minutes later, Laura and Dr. Matthew Cole stepped onto the planet's rocky surface. The air was thin but breathable, and the sky above them glowed with an eerie purple hue. The ground beneath their boots was cold and cracked, littered with jagged stones. In the distance, they spotted a faint blue glow emanating from what appeared to be a large mound of earth. "That's it," Matthew said, pointing toward the light. "Whatever it is, it's definitely not natural." As they approached, the glow grew brighter, revealing a strange object buried halfway into the ground. It was smooth and metallic, shaped like a sphere with intricate patterns etched across its surface. The patterns shifted slightly, as if alive, pulsing in rhythm with the soft hum that filled the air. "Careful," Laura warned, her hand resting on the weapon at her side. "We don't know what this thing is capable of." Matthew knelt beside the object, running his scanner over it. "It's ancient," he murmured, "but the materials, they're unlike anything I've ever seen. This isn't just debris, it's a device, a very advanced one." "Do you think it's safe to touch?" Laura asked, eyeing the sphere warily. "I won't know until I try," Matthew replied with a shrug. He reached out cautiously, his fingers brushing against the cool metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the sphere began to vibrate, the patterns glowing brighter and faster. A low hum turned into a high-pitched whine. And suddenly, a beam of light shot upward, forming a shimmering hologram. The crew stared in awe as the image resolved into the form of several tall, ethereal beings. Their translucent bodies seemed to glow softly, and their eyes held an intelligence that was both captivating and unsettling. One of the figures stepped forward, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "You have found us," the being said, its tone calm yet commanding. "We are the Galactic Elders. Long ago, we created you, humans, as tools. You were designed to adapt, to endure, and to conquer. You are our ultimate weapon." Laura's heart raced. She exchanged a glance with Matthew, who looked equally stunned. "Created us? What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice trembling slightly. The elder paused, as if considering how much to reveal. "Your kind was engineered to serve a purpose. When the time comes, you will fulfill it. But beware, your existence carries great responsibility. Others will seek to control you, to use you for their own ends. You must decide whether to embrace your destiny or resist it." Before Laura could ask more questions, the hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Matthew broke the quiet first. "Did that really just happen? Did they seriously say we were created?" Laura nodded slowly, her mind racing. "This changes everything. We need to get back to the ship and report this. Earth needs to know." As they made their way back to the Odyssey, the weight of the revelation settled heavily on their shoulders. Humanity had always believed it was the result of evolution, a product of chance and time. But now, they knew the truth. They were made, not born. And the implications of that knowledge would ripple across the stars. Back aboard the Odyssey, Captain Laura Hayes paced the dimly lit conference room. Her boots clicked softly against the metal floor as she tried to process what they had just witnessed on the planet below. The crew sat around the table, their faces reflecting a mix of shock, confusion, and disbelief. Dr. Matthew Cole leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly together, while Lieutenant Ryan Carter stared blankly at the wall, lost in thought. "We need to send this information back to Earth immediately," Laura said, breaking the silence. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about all of humanity." Matthew nodded slowly. "Agreed. But how do we even begin to explain it? People won't believe us. They'll think we've gone mad, or worse, that we're lying." Ryan spoke up, his voice low and hesitant. "What if they panic? If word gets out that humans were created, not evolved, it could cause chaos. Governments might try to weaponize this knowledge. Religious groups will probably reject it outright." Laura sighed, rubbing her temples. "I know it's risky, but we can't keep something like this hidden. Humanity deserves to know where we came from. And why." The transmission was sent within hours, encrypted and marked urgent. It traveled across the vast expanse of space, carrying the shocking revelation to Earth. By the time it reached its destination, news outlets had already picked up fragments of the story through intercepted signals. Speculation ran wild. Some claimed it was a hoax. Others saw it as proof of human superiority. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and uncertainty. On Earth, world leaders convened an emergency meeting. Tensions were high as representatives from different nations argued over the implications of the discovery. In Washington, D.C., President Anderson addressed the public in a televised speech. His tone was measured but uneasy. "Today, we face questions that challenge everything we thought we knew about ourselves," he began. "If what our scientists are telling us is true, if humanity was indeed engineered by an ancient alien race, then we must ask, what does this mean for our future? Are we still masters of our own destiny, or are we merely tools in someone else's plan?" The speech did little to calm the growing unrest. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds divided between those who embraced the idea of being chosen and those who rejected it outright. Social media buzzed with debates, memes, and heated arguments. Meanwhile, military commanders began discussing how to use this newfound knowledge to gain an edge over rival nations. Back on the Odyssey, the crew monitored the situation from afar. Laura watched footage of the chaos unfolding on Earth, her expression grim. She turned to Matthew, who was seated nearby. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. People are reacting without thinking. They don't understand the bigger picture." Matthew frowned. "And what is the bigger picture, Captain? We've barely scratched the surface here. That artifact gave us answers, sure, but it also raised 1,000 more questions. Why did the Elders create us? What purpose are we supposed to serve? And most importantly, what happens next?" As if in response to his words, the ship's sensors suddenly detected another anomaly emanating from the artifact. Samantha Drake, the ship's engineer, rushed into the room. "Captain, you need to see this. There's something new coming from the device. It's transmitting coordinates." Laura stood abruptly. "Coordinates? To where?" Samantha hesitated before replying. "It looks like a location deep in uncharted space. Could be the Elders' homeworld." The room fell silent as the weight of the discovery sank in. Laura glanced at her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. "We have a choice to make," she said finally. "We can stay here and let Earth tear itself apart over this, or we can follow those coordinates and find out the truth." Matthew looked at her, his brow furrowed. "You realize if we go, there's no turning back. We'll be disobeying direct orders from Earth Command. They'll brand us traitors." "I know," Laura replied firmly, "but sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks. If we don't pursue this, we may never learn why we exist, or what we're meant to do." After a long pause, Ryan spoke up. "Then let's do it. Let's find the Elders and get some real answers." With the decision made, the Odyssey prepared to leave orbit and embark on a journey into the unknown. As the ship powered up its engines, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far greater than themselves. Whatever awaited them at the end of those coordinates, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The Odyssey soared through the endless void of space, its engines humming steadily as it followed the mysterious coordinates transmitted by the artifact. Inside the ship, the crew worked tirelessly, their movements tinged with both excitement and unease. Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the navigation screen. The journey ahead was long, and the destination remained a mystery, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched by forces unseen. In the ship's lab, Dr. Matthew Cole pored over the data from the artifact. He had spent hours analyzing every detail, searching for clues about the Elders and their intentions. Samantha Drake, the ship's engineer, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You've been staring at that thing for days," Samantha said, breaking the silence. "Find anything useful yet?" Matthew glanced up, his face pale from lack of sleep. "Not much. Just more questions. These coordinates, they lead to a region of space we've never explored. There's no record of any planets or civilizations out there. It's like it doesn't exist." Samantha frowned. "Or maybe it's hidden on purpose. If the Elders created humans as weapons, they wouldn't want just anyone finding them, right?" "Exactly," Matthew replied, tapping a finger on the console. "Which makes me wonder, why give us the coordinates at all? What do they want from us?" Before Samantha could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain Hayes to the bridge. We got something unusual on the scanners." Laura arrived moments later, her sharp gaze sweeping over the crew. "What is it, Lieutenant Carter?" Ryan turned in his seat, his expression tense. "There's some kind of gravitational anomaly ahead. It's disrupting our sensors and making navigation tricky. I've never seen anything like it." Laura stepped closer to the main view screen, studying the swirling patterns of distorted light. Could it be a defense mechanism? Something to keep intruders away? "Maybe," Ryan admitted. "But if we try to go around it, we'll lose the trail. We have to go through." The decision weighed heavily on Laura, but she knew there was no other choice. "Prepare the ship. Everyone strap in. This might get rough." As the Odyssey approached the anomaly, the crew braced themselves. The ship shuddered violently, caught in the grip of powerful gravitational forces. Alarms blared, and lights flickered as the vessel fought to stay on course. In the lab, equipment slid across tables, and Matthew clung to his chair, muttering under his breath. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the turbulence subsided. The ship emerged into a calm, star-filled expanse. On the view screen, a lone planet loomed in the distance, a desolate world bathed in the faint glow of a dying sun. "That's it," Laura said quietly, her voice tinged with awe. "That must be where the coordinates lead." The crew gathered on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the planet. Its surface was barren, scarred by eons of decay. Towering ruins jutted out from the landscape, their jagged shapes casting long shadows under the dim light. The sight was both beautiful and haunting. "We're not alone," Samantha whispered, breaking the silence. Her fingers danced across her console. "I'm picking up faint energy signatures coming from the surface. Someone, or something, is down there." Laura nodded, her mind racing. "Ready the landing party. Cole, you're with me. Let's see who, or what, is waiting for us." As the team prepared to disembark, doubts lingered in everyone's minds. What would they find on this dead world? Would the Elders welcome them, or see them as a threat? Despite the uncertainty, one thing was clear: they were about to uncover answers that could change everything. The airlock hissed open, and the crew stepped onto the planet's cold, cracked surface. The wind carried a faint metallic scent, and the ground crunched beneath their boots. In the distance, a faint blue glow pulsed from within the ruins. Laura took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. "Let's move," she said firmly. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into." With each step closer to the ruins, the weight of their mission grew heavier. Humanity's origins, its purpose, and its future, all rested on what they would discover here. And as they ventured deeper into the heart of the Elder's world, the crew couldn't help but wonder, were they ready for the truth? The landing party moved cautiously through the ruins, their footsteps echoing softly against the crumbling structures. The air was cold and thin, carrying an eerie stillness that made every sound seem louder than it should be. Captain Laura Hayes led the way, her hand resting on the weapon at her side. Behind her, Dr. Matthew Cole scanned the area with his portable device, while Lieutenant Ryan Carter kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. The blue glow grew brighter as they approached the center of the ruins. It came from a massive structure that stood taller than the others, its smooth surface covered in intricate carvings. The design seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles, as if alive. At the entrance, a faint hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. "This is it," Matthew said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever's inside. This is where we'll find our answers." Laura nodded, taking a deep breath before stepping forward. The doorway opened automatically, revealing a vast chamber bathed in soft, pulsating light. In the center of the room stood a towering figure, translucent and glowing faintly. Its presence was both majestic and unsettling, radiating an aura of ancient wisdom. "I am Kel," the figure said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "You have come seeking knowledge. Speak your questions, and I will answer." Laura stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Who are you? Why did you create us?" Kale tilted its head slightly, as if considering how much to reveal. "We are the Galactic Elders, architects of countless civilizations. Your kind was designed for a singular purpose, to serve as the ultimate weapon. You were crafted to adapt, survive, and conquer, to face threats that even we could not endure." Matthew frowned, his mind racing. "A weapon? Against what? And why would you need something like that?" Cal's gaze shifted, its expression unreadable. "There exists a force in this galaxy, a relentless enemy known as the Vorthic. They consume all life, leaving only emptiness in their wake. We foresaw our own extinction at their hands and sought to create a solution. Humanity was our last hope." Ryan exchanged a glance with Laura, his voice tense. "So, we're just tools, created to fight someone else's war." "Not merely tools," Kel replied. "You possess free will, creativity, and resilience. These traits make you more than weapons. They make you capable of choosing your own path. Whether you fulfill your purpose or forge a new destiny is up to you." Laura swallowed hard, trying to process the weight of Kel's words. "Why now? Why reveal this to us after all these years?" "The time has come," Kel said simply. "The Vorthic grows stronger, and the balance of the galaxy hangs in the balance. Your role in this conflict cannot be delayed any longer." Matthew stepped forward, his tone urgent. "But how can we possibly fight something like that? We're just humans. We're not ready for something this big." Kel studied him for a moment before responding. "You underestimate yourselves. Within each of you lies untapped potential, waiting to be awakened. To prove your readiness, you must first pass trials designed to test your adaptability, unity, and strength." Laura felt a chill run down her spine. Trials. She glanced at her crew, seeing the same mix of determination and fear reflected in their eyes. "What happens if we fail?" "If you fail," Kel said, its voice steady but grave, "then the galaxy falls, and all life perishes. But if you succeed, you may yet save yourselves, and countless others." The chamber fell silent as the weight of Kel's words sank in. Laura clenched her fists, resolve hardening within her. "Tell us what we need to do. We won't back down." Kel nodded slowly, gesturing toward a series of doorways that appeared along the walls. "Each trial will challenge you in ways you cannot predict. Work together, trust one another, and remember who you are. Only then will you prevail." As the crew prepared to enter the trials, Laura couldn't help but wonder if humanity was truly ready for what lay ahead. The elders had set them on this path, but the choices they made, and the strength they found within themselves, would determine the fate of the galaxy. With a final glance at her team, she stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The first trial began the moment Laura and her crew stepped through one of the glowing doorways. They found themselves in a dense jungle, the air thick with humidity, and the sounds of unseen creatures echoing around them. Towering trees blocked out most of the sunlight, casting long shadows across the ground. The environment felt alive, almost hostile, as if it was testing them already. "This place, it doesn't feel natural," Matthew said, brushing aside a low-hanging vine. His scanner buzzed faintly, but the readings were erratic, making it hard to trust. Ryan glanced over his shoulder, his hand resting on the grip of his weapon. "Stay close. Something's watching us. I can feel it." As if on cue, the bushes rustled violently, and a group of strange, wolf-like creatures emerged from the undergrowth. Their eyes glowed red, and their teeth gleamed menacingly in the dim light. The beasts circled the crew, growling softly. "Back to back," Laura ordered, drawing her weapon. The crew formed a tight circle, their weapons aimed outward. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, without warning, the creatures lunged. The fight was chaotic and intense. Laura fired her weapon, hitting one of the beasts squarely in the chest. It let out a piercing howl before collapsing. Ryan tackled another creature mid-leap, wrestling it to the ground while Samantha delivered a precise strike with the butt of her rifle. Matthew, less experienced in combat, fumbled for a moment but managed to use his scanner to emit a high-pitched frequency that disoriented the remaining attackers. When the last beast fell, the jungle grew eerily quiet. The crew stood panting, their nerves frayed but their resolve unbroken. "Not bad for our first test," Ryan muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Don't celebrate yet," Laura said sharply. "This is just the beginning." The second trial took them to an icy wasteland where biting winds cut through their uniforms despite the thermal layers they wore. Visibility was poor, with snow swirling in every direction. The ground beneath their feet was treacherous, riddled with hidden crevices that threatened to swallow anyone who stepped wrong. "We need shelter," Samantha shouted over the howling wind. "We won't last long out here." Matthew spotted a rocky outcrop nearby and led the way. Inside, they found a shallow cave offering some protection from the storm. As they huddled together for warmth, Matthew noticed something odd, a faint blue glow emanating from the back wall. "There's something here," he said, brushing away the frost. Beneath his fingers, intricate symbols began to appear, pulsing gently. "It's another puzzle," Laura realized. "Kale said these trials would test our adaptability. Maybe this is part of it." Working together, the crew deciphered the symbols, which seemed to form a pattern based on sequences of numbers and shapes. Each member contributed their skills: Matthew's analytical mind, Samantha's technical expertise, and Ryan's quick thinking. Slowly, the wall shifted, revealing a narrow passage leading deeper into the ice. The third trial brought them to a labyrinthine city suspended high above a fiery chasm. The pathways were narrow and unstable, forcing them to rely on teamwork to cross safely. At one point, a section of the bridge collapsed beneath Samantha's feet. Without hesitation, Ryan grabbed her arm, pulling her to safety as the others anchored him. "You okay?" Ryan asked, his voice strained from the effort. Samantha nodded, still shaken. "Yeah, thanks." Throughout each challenge, Kale observed silently, its translucent form appearing briefly between trials. "You are proving yourselves capable," it said during one brief encounter. "But remember, the true measure of humanity lies not in strength alone, but in unity and compassion." By the time they reached the final trial, exhaustion had set in, but so had determination. They faced a massive arena where holographic projections of enemies appeared, forcing them to strategize and adapt quickly. Laura directed the team with precision, her leadership keeping them focused even as the stakes grew higher. When the last projection vanished, the arena dissolved into light, and Kale reappeared. "You have passed," it declared, its tone approving. "But know this, the greatest challenges lie ahead. The Vorthik will test you in ways far greater than these trials. Will you rise to meet them?" Laura stepped forward, her voice steady. "Yes, we'll do whatever it takes." Kale nodded, its form fading into the air. "Then prepare yourselves. Your journey is far from over." As the crew returned to the Odyssey, they knew the hardest battles were yet to come. But they also knew something else. They weren't just tools or weapons, they were human. And that meant they had the power to choose their own destiny. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew gathered in the ship's briefing room, their faces etched with exhaustion, but also a newfound sense of purpose. Captain Laura Hayes stood at the head of the table, her hands resting on its smooth surface as she addressed her team. "We've passed the trials," she began, her voice firm but calm. "Kale said we're ready to face the Vorthik, but we need to understand what we're up against before we take that step." Dr. Matthew Cole nodded, his eyes fixed on the data pad in front of him. Kale mentioned archives, records left behind by the Elders. If we can access them, we might learn more about the Vorthik and how to stop them. Laura turned to Samantha Drake, the ship's engineer. "Can you help us find these archives?" Kale said they'd grant us access. Samantha hesitated, tapping her fingers on the table. "I'll do my best, but this tech is way beyond anything I've seen before. It might take some time." "Time is something we don't have much of," Ryan Carter added, leaning back in his chair. His expression was tense, his mind clearly racing with thoughts of the battles ahead. "If the Vorthik are as dangerous as Cal says, we need to act fast." The crew returned to the ruins on the planet's surface, guided by Cal's instructions. The Elders' homeworld was eerily quiet now, its desolation weighing heavily on their shoulders. As they approached the towering structure where they had first met Kale, the entrance opened once again, revealing the new chamber filled with glowing consoles and holographic displays. "This must be it," Matthew said, his voice tinged with awe as he stepped inside. "These are the archives." The crew split up, each member focusing on different sections of the vast database. Matthew worked quickly, deciphering alien symbols and translating fragments of information. What he found chilled him to the bone. "The Vorthik aren't just an enemy, they're a plague," he explained, turning to the others. "They're a swarm-like species, driven by instinct to consume everything in their path. They strip planets bare, leaving nothing behind. Entire civilizations have fallen to them." Samantha frowned, scrolling through another set of records. "It gets worse. They're not just mindless destroyers, they adapt. Every tactic used against them, they learn from the encounter. That's why the Elders couldn't stop them." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration evident in his voice. "So how are we supposed to beat something like that? We're outmatched before we even start." Laura stepped forward, her tone steady and reassuring. "We're not the Elders. We're human. And that means we have something they didn't: creativity, resilience, and the ability to think outside the box. We've already proven we can adapt. Now we need to use that to our advantage." Matthew continued scrolling through the archives, his brow furrowed. Suddenly, his eyes widened. "Wait, there's something here. A weakness. The Vorthik operate as a hive mind, a single consciousness controlling the entire swarm. If we can disrupt that connection, we might be able to cripple them." Laura nodded, a spark of hope igniting within her. "That's our plan, then. Find a way to infiltrate their hive mind and shut it down." "But how?" Samantha asked, her voice tinged with doubt. "Even if we figure out how to reach it, getting close enough to do anything will be suicide." "We'll find a way," Laura replied firmly. "We've come this far. Humanity was created for a purpose, to protect life in the galaxy. This is our chance to live up to that legacy." As the crew worked together to piece together a strategy, Kale reappeared, its translucent form shimmering faintly in the dim light. "You have uncovered the truth," it said, its voice resonating in their minds. "The Vorthik are relentless, but so too are humans. Remember, your strength lies not only in your abilities but in your capacity to choose compassion over destruction." Laura met Kale's gaze, determination shining in her eyes. "We won't let you, or the galaxy, down." With renewed resolve, the crew prepared to leave the Elder's world and return to Earth. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they also knew one thing for certain. Humanity's greatest test was just beginning, and they were ready to face it head-on. The Odyssey raced back to Earth, its engines roaring as the crew prepared to deliver their findings to a world still reeling from the revelation of humanity's origins. Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen as the blue-green orb of their home planet grew larger with each passing moment. The weight of what they had learned, and the responsibility that came with it, pressed heavily on her shoulders. When the ship entered orbit, Laura opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Within minutes, she found herself face-to-face with General Marcus Hale, the stern-faced leader of Earth's military forces. His expression was unreadable as he listened to her report, his sharp eyes narrowing at key moments. "So let me get this straight," Hale said finally, his voice clipped and controlled. "You're telling me that humanity was created as a weapon by some ancient alien race, and now we're supposed to fight another alien species that threatens the entire galaxy?" "That's correct," Laura replied, her tone steady despite the tension in the room. "The Vorthik are unlike anything we've ever encountered. They consume planets, leaving nothing behind. But we found a potential weakness: their hive mind. If we can disrupt it, we might be able to stop them." Hale leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "And you expect us to believe this? To mobilize our resources based on your word alone?" "It's not just my word," Laura countered. "We have data from the Elder's archives. It's all here." She gestured to the screen displaying schematics and translated records. "This isn't about belief. It's about survival. If we don't act now, the Vorthik will come for us next." After a long pause, Hale sighed deeply. "Very well. I'll assemble the council. But understand this: if you're wrong, the consequences will fall on your head." Laura nodded. "Understood." Hours later, Laura addressed a packed auditorium of world leaders, scientists, and military commanders. The room buzzed with murmurs as she stepped onto the stage, the weight of countless eyes bearing down on her. She took a deep breath before speaking. "We stand at a crossroads," she began, her voice strong and clear. "For centuries, we've believed ourselves to be the result of chance and evolution. Now we know the truth. We were created with a purpose. That purpose is to protect life in the galaxy. The Vorthik are coming, and if we fail to stop them, no one else will." Her words hung in the air, met with a mix of disbelief, fear, and determination. Some leaders argued over logistics, others demanded proof. But slowly, the reality of the situation sank in. Humanity had a choice: to rise to the challenge or succumb to despair. With Earth's governments united under a single banner, preparations began in earnest. Shipyards worked around the clock to construct fleets armed with advanced technology gifted by the Elders. Soldiers trained tirelessly, learning new tactics designed to counter the Vorthik's relentless swarms. Scientists pored over the archives, searching for any additional weaknesses they could exploit. Amid the chaos, Dr. Matthew Cole and Samantha Drake worked side by side, developing a prototype device capable of disrupting the Vorthik hive mind. Their lab was a flurry of activity, filled with sparks from welding tools and the hum of testing equipment. Despite the pressure, their camaraderie kept morale high. "You really think this will work?" Samantha asked one evening, holding up the small, glowing device. Matthew adjusted his glasses, a tired smile tugging at his lips. "It has to. We've put everything into this. If it fails, well, let's just hope it doesn't." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ryan Carter led combat simulations aboard the Odyssey, pushing the crew to their limits. Each drill was more intense than the last, forcing them to adapt quickly and work together seamlessly. Though fatigue set in, the team grew stronger with every session. As days turned into weeks, Laura watched the progress unfold with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Humanity was preparing for war, but this wasn't just any war. It was a battle for existence itself. And while the odds seemed insurmountable, Laura couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The elders had gambled on humanity, trusting them to fulfill their purpose. Now it was time to prove they hadn't bet on the wrong species. Whatever lay ahead, Laura knew one thing for certain. Humanity would fight, not because they were made to, but because they chose to. The Vorthic arrived without warning. One moment, the galaxy was quiet. The next, their massive swarm filled the void of space, blotting out stars with their sheer numbers. On Earth, alarms blared as detection systems picked up the incoming threat. The time for preparation was over. It was time to fight. Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, her heart pounding as she watched the view screen. The Vorthic ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Dark, jagged shapes that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. They moved in perfect unison, a single entity driven by the hive mind at their core. Battle stations, Laura ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. All fleets, prepare to engage. The battle began in a blaze of light and chaos. Earth's newly constructed armada surged forward, weapons blazing. The Vorthic responded instantly, their ships splitting apart and reforming in unpredictable patterns. Explosions lit up the darkness as missiles and energy beams collided, sending debris spiraling into the void. Lieutenant Ryan Carter piloted the Odyssey with unmatched skill, weaving through the battlefield like a bird dodging predators. "We can't keep this up forever," he muttered, his hands gripping the controls tightly. "They're too many." "We don't have to defeat them all," Laura reminded him, her eyes locked on the tactical display. "We just need to reach the hive mind. That's our only chance." Dr. Matthew Cole and Samantha Drake worked furiously in the lab below, finalizing the prototype device designed to disrupt the Vorthic's connection. Sweat dripped from their brows as they made last-minute adjustments, knowing the fate of the galaxy rested on their creation. "It's ready," Matthew said finally, holding up the small, glowing device. "But someone has to get close enough to deploy it. And I mean close." Laura nodded grimly. "Understood. Prepare a shuttle. We'll do it ourselves." As the crew scrambled to ready the shuttle, the battle raged on outside. Ships exploded around them, their crews lost in flashes of light. Despite the odds, humanity fought back with ferocity and ingenuity. Soldiers used clever tactics to outmaneuver the Vorthic, while engineers modified weapons on the fly to counter their adaptive defenses. When the shuttle launched from the Odyssey, Laura, Matthew, and Samantha sat inside, bracing themselves for what lay ahead. Ryan's voice crackled over the comms. "Good luck, Captain. We'll hold them off as long as we can." The shuttle darted through the chaos, its small size allowing it to slip past the larger Vorthic ships. But the closer they got to the center of the swarm, the more intense the resistance became. Energy blasts rocked the shuttle, and alarms screamed as systems began to fail. "Hold on," Laura shouted, gripping the controls. "We're almost there." Finally, they reached the heart of the swarm, a massive, pulsating structure that radiated waves of dark energy. This was the hive mind, the source of the Vorthic's power. Matthew activated the device, his hands trembling as he set the coordinates. "This is it," he said, his voice barely audible over the noise. "Once I start the sequence, there's no turning back." "Do it," Laura commanded, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. Matthew pressed the button, and the device hummed to life, emitting a high-pitched frequency that rippled outward. The hive mind shuddered violently, its surface cracking and splintering. The Vorthic ships froze mid-motion, confusion spreading through their ranks. But the victory came at a cost. The shuttle systems overloaded, sparks flying as smoke filled the cabin. Laura struggled to maintain control, her vision blurred by sweat and exhaustion. "We did it," Samantha whispered hoarsely, clutching her seat as the shuttle limped away from the collapsing hive mind. "We actually did it." Behind them, the Vorthic swarm began to disintegrate, their unity shattered. Without the hive mind to guide them, the creatures dissolved into harmless fragments, drifting aimlessly into the void. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew erupted into cheers as the tide of the battle turned. Humanity had won, but the scars of war would remain. As Laura looked out at the wreckage of ships and the lives lost, she felt a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. Humanity had proven itself capable of greatness, not because it was engineered to fight, but because it chose to protect. The galaxy was safe, but Laura knew the journey wasn't over. Humanity's story was still being written, and the lessons they had learned would shape their future among the stars. The aftermath of the battle was both sobering and surreal. The once mighty Vorthic swarm had been reduced to drifting fragments, their hive mind obliterated by humanity's daring strike. On board the Odyssey, Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, staring at the view screen as the debris floated silently against the backdrop of stars. The victory felt hollow. Too many lives had been lost, too much destruction wrought. "Damage report," Laura said quietly, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. Lieutenant Ryan Carter glanced up from his console, his expression grim. "Heavy losses across the fleet. Several ships were destroyed, and we got injured crew members who need medical attention. But we're alive. That's something." Dr. Matthew Cole and Samantha Drake joined them moments later, their faces pale but determined. "The device worked," Matthew said, still clutching the now-dead prototype. "It did exactly what we hoped it would. But I don't think any of us expected this." Laura nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the wreckage outside. "War always costs more than we anticipate. But if we hadn't acted, the cost would have been the entire galaxy." As the surviving ships regrouped, Earth Command hailed the Odyssey with urgent updates. General Marcus Hale appeared on the screen, his usual stern demeanor softened by a look of quiet respect. "Captain Hayes, you've done the impossible. Humanity owes you. And your crew. A debt that can never be repaid." Laura shook her head slightly. "We didn't do this alone, sir. Every soldier, every engineer, every scientist, they all played a part. This wasn't just our victory, it was humanity's." Hale paused, then nodded. "Be that as it may, you led the charge. When history remembers this day, it will remember you." Back on Earth, celebrations erupted in cities around the globe. News of the victory spread quickly, sparking parades, speeches, and ceremonies honoring the heroes of the battle. Yet amidst the joy, there was also mourning. Families grieved for loved ones lost, and nations grappled with the staggering toll of war. It was a reminder that even in triumph, there was pain. On board the Odyssey, the crew gathered in the mess hall for a moment of quiet reflection. Food trays sat untouched as they shared stories and memories of those who hadn't made it back. Lieutenant Ryan Carter raised his glass hesitantly, breaking the silence. "To everyone who gave everything," he said softly. "They saved us all." The others echoed his words, their voices filled with gratitude and sorrow. For a brief moment, the weight of their mission lifted, replaced by a sense of unity and purpose. Later that evening, Laura found herself alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. Dr. Matthew Cole joined her after a while, leaning against the railing beside her. "Do you think we'll ever really understand why the elders chose us?" Matthew asked, his tone thoughtful. Laura sighed, her breath fogging the glass slightly. "Maybe not fully. But I think it's less about why they created us and more about what we choose to do with the abilities they gave us. We could have used our strength to dominate or destroy, but instead, we chose to protect. That's what matters." Matthew nodded slowly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You're right. Maybe being created doesn't define us. Maybe it's how we respond to challenges that makes us human. As the ship drifted through the quiet void, Laura felt a flicker of hope. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but humanity had proven it could adapt, endure, and rise to meet even the greatest threats. They weren't perfect, they were flawed, fragile, and sometimes afraid, but they were resilient, and that resilience was their greatest strength. In the days that followed, the Odyssey began its journey home, carrying not just survivors but symbols of hope. Humanity had faced its ultimate test and emerged stronger for it. The scars of war would remain, but so would the lessons learned. Compassion over destruction, unity over division, and courage in the face of fear. As Earth came into view once again, Laura allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew one thing for certain. They had earned their place among the stars. Whatever challenges lay beyond, humanity was ready to face them together. The Odyssey touched down on Earth to a hero's welcome. Crowds gathered at the landing site, waving flags and cheering as Captain Laura Hayes and her crew stepped off the ship. The air buzzed with energy, a mix of celebration and relief after the galaxy's narrow escape from destruction. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and children held up handmade signs that read "Thank you." Laura raised a hand to quiet the noise, her voice calm but firm as she addressed the crowd. "This victory belongs to all of us," she said, glancing at her crew before turning back to the sea of faces. "Every person who worked, fought, or prayed for our success played a part. Today, we honor not just the living, but also those we've lost." Her words struck a chord, and the cheers softened into respectful silence. Many bowed their heads in memory of the fallen, while others wiped away tears. It was a moment of unity, a rare glimpse of humanity coming together despite its differences. In the weeks that followed, life slowly began to return to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after such an event. World leaders convened to discuss the future, recognizing that humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. No longer were they isolated beings confined to one planet. They were now protectors of something far greater. Dr. Matthew Cole and Samantha Drake became household names, celebrated for their role in developing the device that saved the galaxy. They spent countless hours giving interviews, writing papers, and working with scientists to ensure the technology couldn't fall into the wrong hands. Despite the attention, both remained humble, often deflecting praise onto the team effort that made the mission possible. Lieutenant Ryan Carter returned to his duties as a pilot but found himself drawn to teaching. He began training new recruits, sharing the lessons he learned during the battle against the Vorthik. "It's not just about flying fast or shooting straight," he told them. "It's about thinking on your feet, trusting your teammates, and never giving up, even when the odds seem impossible." Laura, meanwhile, struggled to adjust to life on the ground. After months of commanding the Odyssey through chaos and danger, the stillness of Earth felt strange. She spent hours walking along quiet paths, reflecting on everything that had happened. One evening, she met President Anderson in a secluded garden near the Capitol building. "You've done more for humanity than anyone could have asked," the president said, offering her a warm smile. "What will you do now?" Laura hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the horizon. "I don't know yet, but I do know this isn't the end. There are still mysteries out there, questions we haven't answered. Humanity's story is just beginning." The president nodded knowingly. "Then go where you're needed. Lead us forward, Captain. We'll follow." Months later, the Odyssey prepared for another journey, not into war this time, but into exploration. Its mission: to seek out new civilizations, forge alliances, and uncover the secrets of the universe. As Laura stood on the bridge once again, surrounded by her crew, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The scars of the past hadn't faded, but they served as reminders of how far humanity had come, and how much farther it could go. As the ship launched into the stars, leaving Earth behind, Laura allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had been created as a weapon, but it had chosen to become something more, a beacon of hope. And as long as there were challenges to face and lives to protect, the Odyssey, and humanity itself, would keep moving forward. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers alike. But for the first time, humanity faced it not with fear, but with confidence. They weren't perfect, but they were determined. Together, they would write their own destiny, one star at a time.